Please be upstanding for His Worship the Mayor of the London Borough of Hounslow, Councillor Ragwinder Sidhu, accompanied by the Deputy Mayor and the Chief Executive.
Be seated, please. Welcome, members, officers, public, people watching online. Can you please, everyone, put phones on silence? Public can tweet, not the councillors. I remind everyone, please debate through me, Mayor. And similarly, I would like to remind everyone of need to honor our commitment, debate, not hate motion that we unanimously agreed last meeting. So please, during the debate, kindly be civil with each other. Point of order can only be on the breaches of constitution or a law. Finally, please, only put your microphone on when you are speaking and put it off because cameras turn around very quickly and we want people to see who is speaking. And thank you again. We now move on to first item on the agenda. Apologies for absence. I have Councillor Ajmer Garewal, Preetam Garewal, Councillor Harleen Atwal, Councillor Tony Luki. Anybody else? Yes. Councillor Rajwat.
Councillor Bandana Chopra for lateness.
Thank you, Councillor Bandana Chopra for lateness.
Councillor Amrit Maan.
Councillor Amrit Maan. Thank you, Councillor Lal. Any declaration of interest? Yes, Councillor Perezuta.
Declaration of interest for agenda item 12. I work for the 3 Million and Migrant Democracy Project.
Thank you, noted. Announcements. I have two. One is good one and one is sad one. Councillors, you probably notice this bench. Sorry, this mace box, which is made by Lambton School students while working in their technology club, and they built this one with the benches which was not used. So I like to thank you, the Lambton School students who made these boxes and now part of our Hounslow Mayoral collection. And Councillor Samia Chaudhary made this initiative to start that. So thank you. And second announcement is a sad news of Councillor Reverend Baden Pierce, who represented Hounslow Heath Ward as a Labour member in 1970s and lived at that time near Lambton Park Road. He was first elected 1971 and retired from the council in 1978. Councillor Reverend Pierce was also a mayor of Hounslow in 1977-78, as well as serving as Health Committee, the Social Services Committee, the Housing Management Committee, and number of other committees. The Reverend Peirce was distinguished Methodist minister in the words of former colleague in Barnet, and was still acting as a senior supernumerary minister in the Barnet and Queensbury circuit of the Methodist Church until his death. I will now ask Councillor Jagdish Sharma, who worked closely with the late Reverend Peirce, to say a few words. Councillor Sharma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I won't repeat certain things which you said about his committee. As you know, people would have seen that in 2 terms, he has been on most important committees of the council and also the mayor. So these things I won't repeat, and but in addition to that, he did a lot. He was a very popular member of the labor group at that time, and people always used to go to him and never returned disappointed from him. So he did a great job. Because of that, that's why he was very popular with everybody. And in addition to that, he was also appointed Ealing, Hammersmith, and Hounslow Area Health Committee as a councillor representative there. The Reverend Peirce was a Methodist minister for over 50 years. After leaving Hounslow, he went to live in North London, where he continued as a minister in the Highgate and then the Barnet area. He was committed member of the Finchley branch of the Council for Christians and Jews, being a member of that interfaith body for over 40 years. He was honored by that organization in 2009 for his long service, and he said at that time, Christians and Jews are both concerned for justice, peace, and welfare in the community, and it is important there is a means by which we can work together. This helps to sum up former Councillor Baden Peirce's attitude to his fellow being and his dedication to good interfaith relationship. So, Mr. Mayor, it is very sad that he did a great job. So I finally simply will say that I pray to God that his soul live in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharma. On behalf of all the members, I would like to extend our thoughts and condolences to the late Councillor Reverend Peirce, family and friends. Can we have 1 minute silence and stand up, please? Thank you. Any other announcements? Councillor Rajwat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've got 2 announcements to make. First is a very short announcement. As colleagues will be aware, for personal reasons, our colleague Councillor Adriana George has resigned from the council. triggering a by-election on the 9th of March. I just want to put on record Council's thanks to Councillor George for her service to the communities of Bedfont and then Heston West, and we wish her well in the future. My second announcement is around the latest iteration of the Innovate and Grow programme, now in its fourth iteration, and I was pleased to attend the launch on the 25th of January. This builds on past iterations of the Innovate and Grow programme, which is support for our business community, which was started during the COVID pandemic. So this particular program has been tailored to respond to the issues and challenges businesses are facing today. And there are 4 distinct work streams that businesses will be supported through. So the first one is grants. So that's specifically designed for business growth and low energy use solutions. Digital business training for low cost and meaningful ways to win new business. Bid writing and how to identify and win tender opportunities, including through Hounslow Council's own procurement policies, and then wraparound coaching and mentoring to consolidate the training on and focus on any other areas within their businesses. Also, part of the Innovate and Grow programme this time round is the Loft project, which is on the top floor of the former Debenhams store at the Treaty Centre, which has been transformed into a multi-purpose trading environment and creative hub. As well as supporting local communities, businesses will gain their first high street retail experience in an affordable and supportive environment. And in closing, I say, as a council, we remain committed to driving a strong local economy that offers high-skilled job opportunities to local workers. Supporting small businesses helps make that happen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rajput. Any other declaration? Councillor Catherine Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to announce that on the 19th of January, I attended a street builders workshop at Rivers Academy in Feltham. Street Builders is an initiative between Sustrans, the charity that makes it easier for people to walk, wheel and cycle, Block Builders, a digital engagement specialist, and Hounslow Council. The workshop was for secondary students from various schools in the borough, and the students who took part in the workshop used Minecraft to design their dream street. And I should add that Blockbusters trained our borough's engineers in using Minecraft. They did not need to train the students who were already very familiar with the programme. The aim of the Sustrans Minecraft Street Builders initiative, which is funded by the Royal Academy of Engineering, is for young people to experience designing the public realm where they live and as a potential career, and for council highways engineers to engage directly with the diverse communities that they serve. Following the workshop, the students' designs are being worked up and will be displayed at various locations throughout the borough, including Hounslow House and Feltham Library.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Councillor Sampson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, Tina Memory has worked for the London Borough of Hounslow for 22 years, and I firmly believe that she is one of our unsung heroes of Hounslow Council. Starting her career as a mobile caretaker, she is currently the team leader for the central caretaking team. In 2019, the caretaking team became accredited members of the British Institute of Cleaning Science, BICS, and the caretaking team leaders became BICS accredited assessors. This enabled them to train their teams to a globally recognised standard of cleaning. Tina has led on this training, organising and training not just her own team, but also assisting the other team leaders. 3 years ago, Tina was diagnosed with skin cancer and has been undergoing treatment ever since. Despite this and the unprecedented challenges of the pandemic for the caretaking team, she has continued to deliver the cleaning training to her team and throughout the rest of the teams throughout the borough. In July 22, last year, Tina was nominated for a global award by the British Institute of Cleaning Science. This award acknowledges the success of the individual assessor who has demonstrated an outstanding level of passion, professionalism and commitment to excellence for their students and themselves. There were over 1,000 nominations from all over the world. and I'm delighted to announce that Tina won. She won this award. Representatives from the Institute presented Tina with her award in Brentford at the end of last year. Our caretakers have one of the strongest and closest relationships with our residents. They often go about their daily work without complaint or any need for recognition for their tireless work. They are the bedrock of the communities they serve, and Tina is certainly the embodiment of that dedication. Tonight, I would like to congratulate her for her award and her ongoing commitment to Hounslow Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Councillor Barth, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of announcements to make tonight. The first is that a number of Ofsted inspections have taken place of our schools in the borough since the beginning of the academic year. And I think there's about 15 in total. So we've had 8 primary schools, 5 secondary and 2 special schools being inspected. And included in these two schools were Boulder Academy and Southwell, who were actually inspected for the very first time. So I'm pleased to say that all the schools that have been inspected retained either good or outstanding Ofsted, which means that all our schools currently in the borough are either good or outstanding, which I think I'm sure you'll all agree is an excellent place to be. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the teachers, all the schools, all the teaching assistants, all the support staff that support all our children and young people in the borough. So moving on to my second announcement, as you know, we are all corporate parents to our looked after children. And I'm really pleased to say that one of our looked after young person has been offered a place at Cambridge University to study veterinary medicine. I don't know. Yeah, thank you. I don't know much about veterinary medicine, but I understand it's really tough to get into. So I think that's excellent, excellent news, and well done to the young person. As corporate parents, I'm sure you'll be happy for me to pass on our congratulations to her, but also not just her, but to the social workers and everybody within the team who supported her. And also, I think I'd like to take this opportunity to say that we're proud of all our looked after children, whatever their journey, educational journey is, whether it's through apprenticeship, training, employment or education. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barth. Now, shall we move on to agenda item 3, page number 6 to 13, meeting held on 29th of November 2022. Minutes for that meeting. Agreed? Any? Councillor Mishisho?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to request, with your kind judgment, that on page 7, top of page 7, there is a line from my very astute friend, good friend, Councillor Lukey, that says, it says, Chiswick Area Forum and criticizes the chair's request that questions be submitted to the Conservative political assistant rather than the community development officers. Now, I'm asking for your judgment on this, and I hope we can change it to make something a little bit more in keeping with the spirit of debate, which is not to criticize officers in a public forum. So can I ask, please, that we change that line to perhaps to read something like raised concerns about how the meeting was conducted. Raised concerns about how the meeting was being conducted. I'm happy to take criticism, but I don't want officers of this council to be in that line of fire.
We'll look into it.
Take some soundings from members in
Yes, Councillor Unsa Chaudhry.
Thank you. I just want to say, as Councillor Luke is not here today, I think it'll be good to speak with him if he's happy to change what was said, just so that the meaning of what he was saying isn't taken away.
Councillor Rajput.
Yeah, I mean, Councillor Luke is not here to clarify his comments. I think Thomas does a good job of taking minutes. Obviously, we appreciate they're not verbatim. I would suggest we agree the minutes as they are, and Councillor Luke can clarify at the next meeting if need be.
Councillor Dunn.
Yeah. Apologies if I'm asking for something similar, but at the top, so also on the same item, item 8, so it says Councillor Catherine Dunn stated that the abuse had come from both sides at Chiswick Area Forum. I was very upset at this meeting, the last council meeting. I can't actually remember what I said, but the abuse wasn't from both sides, if that's what we're going to call it, at Chiswick Area Forum. It was very much from one side. Councillor Thompson mentioned some unpleasant tweets, and I did agree with him regarding the tweets, but at the meeting, there was only abuse from one side. And secondly, it says that Councillor Dunn said that all Labour members had received an abusive email. That should be all members.
Councillor Bidoff.
I disagree that abuse was directed from one side only. It was definitely from two sides.
Can we not debate that? Can we? Yeah.
The minute is about the minute of the council meeting, not rehearsing what happened in the Chiswick Area Forum members. So Councillor Dunn's recollection was that she stated, as stated, Councillor Bidoff. And as we extended the courtesy to Councillor Lukey for him to clarify his position, I think we've got the clarification from Councillor Dunn, and I think we're obliged to take it on the face of her recollection. So if that's the amendment that she believes truly reflects what was stated in the council meeting, not in the Chiswick Area Forum, then I believe that that should be accepted.
Agreed. Agenda item 4, petitions. Do we have any petitions? No. No petitions. Agenda item 5, appointments to the committees and other bodies.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Councillor Todd.
Yeah, can I apologise? There is a petition. I do apologise. It's a matter shown in the paper circulated. Members of the Cabinet have decided to take this directly rather than going to the Chiswick Area Forum. We accept that and hope that the petitioners will receive some positive action.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agenda item 5, appointments and other bodies. Member will see 2 proposed appointments, including the original agenda relating to the pension fund panel. In addition, there is another proposed appointment in the supplementary agenda relating to revenue appeal panels. Noted. Decision taken under urgency arrangements. Thank you. Agenda item 7. We have questions. Councillor Jack Emsley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like we've whizzed through all of that and got to questions pretty quickly. Mr. Mayor, less than half of local Homes for Ukraine sponsors have received their promised support payments from the London Borough of Hounslow, despite the scheme being launched over 10 months ago. With over 70 host families still on the waiting list for local authority support, and many dropping out of the scheme after not receiving any support from Hounslow Council. Could the leader of the council please explain what, if anything, the council is doing to speed up this process and support those who've opened their doors for refugees?
Thank you, Councillor Emsley. Councillor Rajvat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ramsey, for the question. I'm afraid I don't agree with some of the figures in here, and I'll provide some clarification in response. But Hounslow Council absolutely has a proud, it is very proud to support refugees and asylum seekers, and is grateful for all the support offered by residents who have come forward to offer accommodation to those fleeing the war in Ukraine. The number of sponsors under the Homes for Ukraine scheme in Hounslow is a constantly changing figure. As new people arrive, sponsors have their checks completed, exit the scheme, or are taken off the scheme due to failing those checks. At the beginning of the year, there were 175 sponsors who were either in receipt of payment or currently having their checks processed. 103 of those sponsors have had all checks completed and have been paid. This means that 72 sponsors were in the process of having their checks completed. However, this includes very recent arrivals, and it is also not a given that sponsors will pass those checks. So it is an evolving situation. In line with government requirements, all checks need to be completed in order for sponsors to be paid, and this process can take 10 to 12 weeks, even when everything runs smoothly. Some of the checks require home visits, some require information from sponsors, and some are done by external agencies. Of the 72 sponsors currently being processed, 32 are recent arrivals in the last 3 months and will be processed as such. For those approximate 40 who have waited longer, we've looked into each individual case individually, and there are a number of reasons for the wait, including delays from the sponsors themselves and delays with the government's disclosure and borrowing service. We know where each individual case is in the system, and the team is in regular contact with them to support them. They are also able to connect them with other services when needed, such as financial support or housing services. We've also recently recruited a specific role within the service funded by the scheme to assist in particular with the DBS process, which is having an impact, as is added capacity in the coordinating team. What I would say, Councillor Ramsey, is obviously if there are specific cases, please do bring them to my attention. By the time we get to Borough Council, we're a long way down the line. It would be better if we dealt with that in email. But I hope that satisfies your question.
Supplementary.
It's exciting. We get two. Some have been dealt with. So I appreciate that from Councillor Radrat. I think one of my biggest concerns I have is that host families are being forced out of the scheme due to financial situations, and there are some examples of that. And I'm happy to email him on specific cases. If the process of checking hosts is taking too long, more than 3 months, and there are sort of 30 or more families who are taking more than 3 months, would the council commit to exploring alternative ways to support host families and refugees in the short term, such as supporting the government-funded household support grant as an option for those awaiting that £350 payment, but who are struggling to support the refugees who they're supporting?
Thank you, Councillor Emsley. Councillor Rajvat.
Yeah, Councillor, as I sort of alluded to, now that we've got some dedicated support around the scheme to try and get this moved along, we'll look at all the options available to us. That is not a problem. We appreciate what these host families are potentially offering and looking to give up, and we'll explore all avenues that are available to us, including that what? We'll go to have a look at it. We'd have a look at all options.
Thank you, Councillor Rajvat. Thank you, Councillor Emsley. Next question is from Councillor Kuldeep Tak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is very short. Just want to ask, like, how many warehouses or other units are either empty or not being used currently in the Feltham North Trading Estate?
Councillor Bruce.
Thank you. As I'm sure Councillor Tack knows, the Hounslow Council doesn't own any of the warehouses in North Feltham Trading Estate. They are in private hands. We understand that the vast majority are being utilised to their fullest.
Sorry, Bruce. Mr. Mayor, this is not acceptable. Handing out leaflets in the middle of a meeting. Sorry, Councillor Bruce. I apologise.
Okay. Councillor Bruce.
I'll carry on. Hounslow Council don't own any of the warehouses or other units on the North Feltham trading estate. We understand the vast majority are being utilised to their fullest. There are currently 2 on the market for sale and 2 for rent. This, as of this week. Last week there were 5, so 1 turned over incredibly quickly, and we understand another one is under offer, will be under offer very soon. So even though there is some sales and some rental agreements out there being sought, they are being turned over incredibly quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. And supplementary, Councillor Tak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I understand that it's in private hands, but there are long-term plans about Hatton Green being converted into...
Question, Councillor Tak.
Yes, being converted into trading estate and building new warehouses. If things are empty in here, why don't council force these warehouses or units to be used first before converting a green land into a place where there will be empty warehouses?
Councillor Bruce.
I mean, it is a ridiculous question, I'm afraid. Absolutely ludicrous. So Councillor Tak needs to go and have a look at the local plan reviews and look at the incredible amount of work that's been undertaken over the last number of years, by the officers of this council in putting together the proposals that he is suggesting. As I said, they are in private hands, and he started to suggest that they weren't being utilised when I said they were. What we're looking at here is a holistic approach in trying to reach housing and employment targets in this borough that fulfill our housing and employment targets for the next 15 or 20 years. That's the emphasis here, okay? It is a balancing act on all sorts of factors, but the work has been undertaken, and I would urge you to look in the documents to find how they have been reached, to find where those figures come from, to find why these proposals are coming forward. Ultimately, the submission is to the Secretary of State and by extension, the Inspector, who will decide on whether our proposals are valid or not.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Agenda item 9, Councillor Gabriella Giles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the Cabinet Member for Climate, Environment and Transport Strategy accept that the South Chiswick Livable Neighbourhood project is causing problems regarding visitor access, speeding across the area, confusion regarding access via Thames Road, and the lack of non-resident access from Staveley Road, and increased traffic to Burlington Lanes because of the introduction of a barrier on Staveley Road?
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. The Livable Neighbourhood Scheme was introduced in South Chiswick in line with the Council's transport ambitions to increase cycling, walking, to reduce shorter journeys and to tackle air pollution. I stand by the ambitious transport strategy that we have as a council because of both all of the climate emergency, the air quality challenges that we face, and indeed the public health quality challenges that we have across London. As Councillor Giles will be aware, the decision regarding the barrier at Staveley Road has already been taken, and this is now a permanent feature. The measures that remain experimental in South Chiswick are the Staveley Road restricted access and the no entry into Burlington Lane. The council is currently looking at consultation responses, traffic data, which demonstrates no increase in speed or accidents in key locations, and in fact shows a net reduction in traffic across the scheme, alongside air quality data, and these are being collated and reviewed. Further engagement is planned in the next few weeks with ward councillors and residents in order to share all of this data. The leader and I have been speaking to community groups to listen to them, to hear about their experience of the scheme, including some of the difficulties they've had before any final decisions are taken. We have made it clear we're listening, we are listening, and those final decisions will be taken before the end of February.
Thank you very much. And it would have been nice. Oh, sorry, can I help?
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Supplementary, Councillor Giles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I'm a bit eager here. I think I appreciate the answer, but I would like to ask for a supplementary on this, and I think it's fundamentally, so what is this council most proud of? Raising over £10 million in fines or disenfranchising the residents that you've been elected to serve?
This like fines have nothing to do with the question. But Councillor Dunn.
We're proud of our achievements in this area. We're proud of pushing active travel, enabling people to engage in active travel. And I'm proud of our climate emergency action plan, addressing the changes that we are all having to face, and addressing those additional challenges around air pollution and around public health.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn.
So I'll take that as a no.
Let's move on now. Okay, agenda item 10. Motions, we have half an hour to deal with these three motions. Councillor Rajput.
Chair, point of order. Can I move suspension of the 30-minute rules to complete all the motions?
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Trump. Thank you. First motion proposed by Councillor Farhan Rahman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for this opportunity. The amount of income we receive from council tax and the government is not sufficient for the council to invest in the services that we know are most needed. Our communities are struggling with the current cost of living crisis, and these effects are being felt by across all our communities, but especially by the most vulnerable. The current policy of an annual statement does not allow us as a council to plan for the long term. As a council, Hounslow is proud of the support we give to our residents. That being said, there's much more we can do if we have the appropriate resources to do so. On that note, I'm happy to move this motion on behalf of my colleagues in the Labour Group. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rahman. Seconded, Councillor Chopra.
Yes, I second it, Mr. Mayor, and I'd just like to say a few words. So, as we know, we're living through a cost of living crisis, and the money is tight for both local councils and their residents. Families are using food banks and hardship funds more and more, while local councils are increasingly expected to be there for those who are struggling. This is despite Hounslow Council being given more responsibility from central government without receiving extra support to manage this. The lack of proper funding by the government is affecting the needs of all the residents of the borough. Measures like giving the most needy school children proper food during school holidays are essential to help those low-income families, but this is not sustainable in the longer term. If we are to support more families, then we need a better allocation of funds so we can continue to provide a fair service to all residents while helping more people survive under the current crisis until it is resolved. This means ensuring that the Chancellor bases funding calculations on the proper population of Hounslow Borough, not on outdated figures. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chopra. Councillor Bruce, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've been a councillor for almost 13 years now. I was discussing coming into the council with John, Councillor Todd, earlier. At that time, we had a new Labour administration, but a new Tory government. And ever since then, we have been having to deal in local government with successive Conservative governments handing less and less money, undervaluing local government and local councils, and underfunding us significantly. Naively, perhaps, at the beginning, 2010, 11, 12, I thought, oh, you know what? It's just a little bit, and this surely will get better, because they must realise that we can't continue to survive on a shoestring. But as is probably misquoted by Maya Angelou, when they show you who they are, believe them the first time. So where are we? We are where the motion tells us. We have people who were giving to food banks now having to use them. We have school children that I'm teaching coming to school hungry. We have less and less money and more responsibility with which to carry out, and less money to carry out those responsibilities. And what's the future hold? Well, I absolutely agree with what the motion suggests at the bottom. Those are all the things that we need to be doing and that we need to be asking the government and the Chancellor to step up in doing. But fundamentally, what do we need? We need a Labour government. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Siddiqui.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mayor. I think today at this session, we need to ask a question. Who has over the past decade played a havoc with the economy, cut down the council funding to bare minimum, destroyed the decent ethical values of the British society? And the answer is facing us. It's the central government run by Tories. They are a group of people who live by the edict of all rules for public and no rules for us. Since 2010, they lit a bonfire, which they fueled by burning all principles of honesty and fair play, which are the hallmarks of a just British society. They denied due funding to the local government in the garb of their twisted austerity agenda. To quote from FT, local government funding squeeze has withdrawn over 15 billion from council budgets in England in the last decade. So that's just 15 billion in a decade, which could have funded a lot better for the council, if the fund would have been with the council. So what we are looking at is skews of 15 billion. That is a huge amount. On the other hand, it's not amiss to remind us all in this chamber that local governments are responsible for providing very complex system of adult social care, special needs provision, housing, as well as very minor things, bin collection, libraries, parks, street cleaning, which matters to local people. But the issue is, at this moment of time, we as a council are at sharp end of this stark reality of how to continue to serve our valued residents, where the central government is squeezing billions from the local government budgets. The Institute of Government quoted from their recent research that the miles covered by bus route fell 14% between 2009 and 10, and 29 and 2020, with deprived areas more likely to see reductions. A third of England libraries have closed between that decade. So we are the world's 5th largest economy. We cannot provide bus routes and bus fares for our most deprived citizens. We are taking away libraries away from children. We cannot provide them the basis for knowledge. This is what the government is for. I feel quite worried in terms of how we're going to proceed further. And Tories deprive local government of essential funds. They need to serve the hardworking residents. But on the other hand, I would say you would not be surprised that many of them also deprive Her Majesty's Tax and Revenue Service for paying the tax due to them. I wonder, Tories across the developed world are the only party with, I wanted to use a different word, but due to my upbringing, I can't put that here. So I would say obnoxiously rich people as leaders and who have no understanding or desire to know how an ordinary, hardworking Britain lives. The problem is they look at tax dodging, lack of ethics, disrespect for law are the 3 essential qualifications to become a Tory leader. The ones whose billions of family finances were based on structure of non-dom became the Tory leader. The one who used taxpayer money to heat his pony stables and then did not pay millions of tax on profits he made become the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And one, a PM, who was living on borrowed time, goes in his last leg of his premiership and asks for somebody to guarantee a loan to borrow money for his lavish lifestyle. So, sir, the question being asked now, up and down in the country, is that our council finances are so severely impacted. So, what's the answer? The answer is that we need a leadership who believes in council structure, the institution of council, are willing to fund it, who are able to provide the required funding and also the support required. There is a whole mirage of what you call, the funding arrangements on the leveling up fund, which is just an eyewash. The local councils are bidding for those funds and they're spending thousands of pounds of money just to, fund those bids basically. So it's not the right use of the funds. Sir, I finish here. Honorable Mayor, I stand here in this August chamber today and support this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
for the
Councillor Siddiqui. Councillor Thompson.
Right, thank you as always, Mr. Mayor. There is, going back to the motion, there are some, in terms of the bullet points, then there are some sensible recommendations which we could have supported if he hadn't been surrounded by a load of waffle. Okay, making representations to the Chancellor to improve the system would be a view that anyone would share who's ever had anything to do with local government finance, safeguarding the council's tax support scheme, working with other authorities for a 5-year settlement, as I think we're all committed to making the most of all the opportunities that are out there. I'm not quite sure why we're writing to the HMRC if the Chancellor's got his figures wrong. I didn't think the tax people were that bothered about that sort of thing, but maybe that's a mistake, but maybe that's something I don't know. I think given the consultation on the financial settlement finished on the 16th of January this year, I do hope we haven't been waiting for this wonderful meeting tonight to make all these views clear. You know what? It didn't all go wrong for local government finance in May 2010. It was 40 years ago when the then Labour Minister for Local Government told local authorities that the party was over, when in response to the 1975 financial crisis, the oil crisis we had, the money stopped flowing. We experienced, and I was here, and many members in this chamber were here, and Councillor Bruce mentioned it, we did experience a 40% reduction in local government finance during that period of the coalition government. But you do have to remember, we were trying to get ourselves out of a bit of a mess we were in, caused largely down to the 2007-2008 global financial crisis. We are in a terrible situation now. Money, indeed, as you said, has never been tighter. There are massive inflationary cost pressures that we have to deal with, that residents have to deal with. Add into that the after effects of the pandemic. Add onto all that the increase in inflation caused by the illegal and disgraceful invasion of the Ukraine. When you put it all together, it's a bit rich to blame all our woes and worries simply on what this government has or has not done. Moreover, what frustrates me about this motion is what it does not mention. It does not mention, and these are the words from London councils, that the 2003-2004 Provisional Local Government Financial Settlement provided much needed additional resources for London boroughs, and this is the best bit, through the largest increase in the core spending power since 2010. And they continue, London councils, the increase in core spending power will go a long way, and I grant you not enough perhaps, but it will go a long way to help boroughs balance budgets next year. And it demonstrates that the concerns raised by the sector have been listened to. The settlement was not as bad as many of us were fearing, and the extra funding for social care, albeit coming with strings attached, was a relief for many. The government has recognised, and I'm sure that in an ideal world more would be done, but the government has recognised the pressures councils are facing right now. So don't forget and don't perhaps ignore the fact that there has been a boost to our money from this Conservative government. There will still be, as there are in all sectors of the economy, massive pressures on our budget going forward. But as the Governor of the Bank of England said, there is real hope that the recession will be shorter and narrower than people were hoping. We're not in the same situation as some of our European neighbours who are facing inflationary pressures far in excess of what we are. We do have to consider seriously, and it's always a difficult dilemma to ponder, whether or not to increase the council tax to make the budget up. Perhaps tonight we could have more profitably spent time looking at one area where we could, and especially the side opposite, could have put pressure on somebody who is actually going to be causing all of us to be paying more through our council tax this year. And I'm talking about, of course, the Mayor of London. We have to stay within budget. When we don't do that, they send in the commissioners like they did in Liverpool and Stockport and Slough. But he seems to get a special dispensation from this government, no idea why, to help himself to more dollops of public money on top of what he was given to bail out Transport for London. It's disappointing that we taxpayers, yes, people who are really suffering and finding it hard to make ends meet, that we are having to foot the bill for A, the GLA's poor performance and decision making, and secondly, his mismanagement of Transport for London. If this council was serious about doing something that actually would make a difference to people's cost of living pressures, then perhaps we should be writing to the Mayor of London. And if you want his address, it's Sadiq Khan, City Hall, Cumnor Church Way, London, E16 1ZE.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Samia Chaudhry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm proud to support this motion, and I agree what Councillor Bruce and Councillor Siddiqui has said. I'm not going to repeat the same thing, but I have seen the direct impact, the lack of funding to our public services has had on residents, not on just in my ward, but throughout the borough. As a cabinet member of adult and health integration, I have seen firsthand the challenges associated with the lack of financial support available to our public sector institutions such as the NHS. Mr. Mayor, the pandemic exhausted our resources, services, both of which are now in their need for financial support that matches the demand for them. People are having to choose between heating their home or putting food on the table, and in some cases are having to work multiple jobs just to meet their end needs. A lack of funding in the public sector means that frontline staff cannot continue to provide essential services with the limited resources available to them. Mr. Mayor, while clapping for our frontline NHS staff is a great gesture of supporting, clapping does not put food on the table. Just recently, we saw nurses strike for first time in over 106 years because they are overworked and underpaid. We believe that our institution should receive financial support that reflects the enormous workload. The current inflation rates has made it increasingly difficult to sustain and livelihood. For over 12 years under the Tory administration, we have seen tax rebate plan for the rich, but nothing to support institutions and infrastructure. Cut after cuts to our public sector services. This is why, Mr. Mayor, I ask this council to support this motion and hold the government to account. I'm sure across bench my colleagues do understand what issues and challenges our residents are facing financially, like Councillor Thompson said earlier in his speech. We must make sure we get proper support from central government. I will be supporting this motion, but I think we do know who to blame for. It's not just saying that we bang on the wall of City Hall. I think it's really, really important that we tell the central government what we need for our residents, what we need for Hounslow, what is important for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chaudhry. Councillor Williams, please.
Weakened the value of the pound in our pockets and made goods, services and borrowing more expensive for everyone. We are now all paying more for less. But Councillor Moshiso has learned nothing from his party's failures. He too is calling for tax cuts without telling us what services they would cut to pay for it. So many options. I wonder which they'd pick. Will it be children's and adult social care, the single biggest area of council spending? Remember social care? How many years have the government been promising us reform of social care? A plan? Is it 6? I can't remember. It's been a long time. We're still waiting. Today, we live with the consequences of this government's failure. People cannot get an ambulance, see a doctor, or find a policeman. We will take no criticism from the Conservatives on the management of public services. I dread to think of the state our local services would be in if they had pursued here in Hounslow the same ruinous tax cuts and service cuts that have left core services that the national government is responsible for stretched beyond breaking point. This government continues to falsely penalise London councils in the name of levelling up, as if they think the streets of London are paved with gold. Perhaps they are where Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt live, but that's not the case here in Hounslow. Instead of a long-term fair funding settlement for councils, they are incentivising councils to increase local council tax by 5% to fill the hole left by their underfunding. That's right, they're literally going to bribe councils with government money to increase the council tax, rather than come up with a fair funding settlement and give us the longevity of funding that we need. It's the wrong approach, and they should think again. We need a fair funding settlement for local government, Mr. Mayor, and I support this motion.
Councillor Mashisho.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Point of order. Can I move that the question be put?
No, you've just asked me to stand.
Point of orders come first.
Question. So you have the right to reply.
Point of order.
I move that the question be put.
Okay. Point of order. So, question to be put, seconded. Second by done. So we vote on that? Vote.
Ask in favour.
Against?
Abstain.
Abstain?
And the question should be put.
Question to be put.
Thank you. So we need to move on to the next motion.
Can you vote on that now for the motion? For the motion? Against the motion? Abstain? No abstentions. It's moved on. Motion moved to carried out. Now we move to second motion by Councillor Joanna Bidoff.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. The photos in the supplementary agenda are grim. I'm ashamed that anyone is living in this state in Hounslow. The 3 horrible photographs of mould were taken in the home of residents in Chiswick Gunnersbury ward. The family is in a private rented flat, which would be extremely desirable if it weren't unfit for habitation. They should not have to live like this, yet the council is forcing them to do that. When I visited this family, within half an hour, I found it difficult to breathe. My lungs were heavily restricted, and this did not shift even after I moved near an open window. Open only because our enforcement officer used force to open it, the family having not been able to for months. I could leave that flat for a home free of mould. My residents can't. Last night, when I spoke to the mother of 3, she told me they were all coughing. Indeed, she was coughing throughout our call, and she feared they all now had chest infections. Mould causes chest infections. Their lease ended in early January, but the council said they should stay put and go through the eviction process. When they were on the streets with their suitcases, the council would rehouse them. I struggled with this policy when I was told of it. I struggle with it now. Even though I understand the base logic, the landlord must bring it up to standard. I cannot justify it. If the council will find this family a home when it is on the streets, why won't it find them a home now, reacting to the urgent need, stopping it before it starts to pick up on the council's homelessness prevention strategy? Launching that strategy, the then Cabinet Member for Housing, Councillor Lily Bath, said, "The message is simple. We want to help and support residents and prevent them from losing their home, rather than waiting until they are homeless and having to pick up the pieces. If we can predict homelessness, we can prevent it. And this means that nobody will need to be forced out of their home. No one sleeps rough. And there will not be a need for anyone to go into emergency accommodation without a plan to quickly move into housing." Saying that my residents need to be evicted before the council will step in isn't stopping it before it starts. Before others, as did Councillor Sampson, say that legislation requires them to be convicted, evicted, Secretary of State Michael Gove told all providers of social housing that to keep tenants safe, you must not hide behind legal process. These tenants are not safe. The council is hiding behind legal process. The landlord's actions have been slow, his contractors inefficient and obfuscatory. The family's living conditions do not meet high safety and quality standards. They were without water in the bathroom over the Christmas break, the entire Christmas break. They need to be rehoused now, not to wait until the end of the legal process of eviction. We must stop reading the rule book and react with humanity and empathy, and with decisiveness, determination, and speed. A word about enforcement. I'm pleased to say that the enforcement officer's response was strong. He had empathy. He raised difficult issues with the landlord appropriately and professionally. But enforcement was slow to step in. There is a backlog. This is unacceptable and cannot continue. Lives are at risk. Ensuring that the first bullet point of our motion can be fulfilled means increasing staffing where it is needed most, at the point of delivery. So does fulfilling the third bullet point. The Housing Department is in hiatus currently again, but the need to fill higher paid posts, including a new executive director, must not delay the need to recruit more officers working on the doorstep, saving lives. In addition, the fact is that the council does not have a plan to quickly move residents desperate for a safe home into housing. Actions lack speed, are riddled with delay, seem to be without any sense of urgency. It is beyond intolerable for families such as those I'm supporting now. This cannot continue. Lives are at risk. Mold is a killer. We know that from the tragic case of Awab Ishak in Rochdale. There are no excuses, no reasons for not fulfilling the long-term aims of the government inquiry, not just its immediate tasks. We must not have a death from mold in this borough. We cannot be the only councillors who have had to be forceful about the need to respond to residents. By we, I mean us in the opposition, in such poor housing conditions. Regardless, I ask you to involve us in developing the policies and practices needed to eradicate unsafe and low-quality housing in the borough. We can bring an outsider's view, unaffected by internal Labour politics. I'm sorry that the Councillor for Housing Cabinet Member for Housing isn't listening, to ensure all our residents live in safe and high-quality housing. The current process and policies cannot continue, Councillor Sampson. I urge you all to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Biddulph. Seconded by Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to second this motion brought by Councillor Biddulph. To build on what she's already said, we are bringing this motion to you at a time when we have had an opportunity to vote for a motion that should result in action that will benefit our valued residents who rent, regardless of who the landlord be, the council, private or otherwise. Ahead of the budget, we want to ensure that this council is one that takes its duties seriously and lives up to the values of One Hounslow, to lead with the heart, to do new, pass on the power, harness the mix, and be a rock. Councillor Biddulph has shared with you just one experience tonight of what is happening in the borough, and I know that each of my Conservative colleagues across the borough have examples we could also share today. Aside from the state of the property, and the photos here refer to more than just one property in the borough, Councillor Biddulph has highlighted some of the bureaucratic challenges that many residents encounter when trying to keep a roof over their heads. For us, this isn't about party politics. It's about ensuring that our duty of care to our residents is upheld, to support them when they need housing, to ensure that the places where they lay their hats and heads are safe to live in, that they have hot and cold running water, and that their home can truly be their castle. To vote against this motion or to water it down via an amendment would be irresponsible and a demonstration to our electorate that you would rather wait, write a letter, or simply carry on as usual than take responsibility for a very life-threatening concern. On a recent estate inspection with the new Cabinet Member for Housing, Councillor Sue Sampson, I was encouraged to see how active and engaged she was when highlighting areas of concern that can result in damp and resulting health issues. After a suspension after a suspension of these inspections due to the pandemic, it was reassuring to see that items such as blocked gutters, loose window frames, worn pointing, and even improper landscaping that could allow for dampness were being highlighted to the responsible officer as items for improvement. During this inspection, we didn't go into many flats, but there was one location where we could see that there was a lot of growth on the roof and the gutters were blocked. The outside wall was mottled and indicated some sort of damp. We were able to knock on the door and meet the resident who let us in. The door on the bathroom was swollen and unhinged, and there were signs of a leak on the ceiling. We couldn't get behind the tiling to see where the damp was coming through the wall, but we had been told that there were issues in the past which were unresolved at the time of inspection. Unfortunately, after 4 years on this council, one of my common frustrations is the rate of change and recommended improvements, whether they be maintenance or early intervention to prevent more costly and lengthy repairs, or even managing the eviction process. It's, to use an American phrase, as slow as molasses in January, which I believe we're still in. I know that there will be regular excuses that we don't have the money, that we need to wait until a person is evicted, that we need to wait until the problem becomes so big that there's no other choice but action. So I ask, what are you waiting for? Someone to die as a result of living in substandard housing? Can we really afford to wait for action? By voting for this motion, you will agree to more than just a box ticking exercise or some sort of virtue signal. You will be showing the residents of this borough that not only do you take their health and safety seriously, but you are willing to make a change, thereby demonstrating that the values of this council are more than just lip service. You will be enacting the values of leading with the heart, doing new, passing on the power, harnessing the mix, and therefore truly be a rock for the residents of this borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Members will note that there is a proposed amendment by Councillor John Straub. Can I ask to introduce that, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And following on from Councillor Giles, at the risk of sounding irresponsible, I think this motion badly needs an amendment. Councillor Biddulph was sorry that people weren't listening, not as sorry as we are that the government isn't listening to what really needs to be done. Also, both speakers urged the council to break the law set by the Conservative government on housing. If we could have a change of law by the current Tory government, then the council would be empowered to act. Equally, I'm sure we'd all like to see more enforcement action. As Councillor Giles and Councillor Biddulph says, it comes at a cost. And where's that money coming from? Let's ask over here, because it ain't coming from central government. We have dedicated officers who are desperate to enforce housing standards, but we don't have enough of them. Why? The answer, once again, is over here. Mr. Mayor, it'd be hard to argue with the spirit of this motion, but however, it's sadly lacking in many, many details. It fails to recognise two key points. Firstly, that Michael Gove has made this whatever it is he's made, but like most Conservative decrees, it's too little, too late. We hear the sound of the stable door banging shut after the horse is well down the road. And it's taken this tragedy in Rochdale to force their hand. We knew what the issue was in Hounslow. We know what the issue is in London. What we need is empowerment from central government. That's what we really need. Furthermore, this motion fails to recognise the hard work being done by this council, and particularly the dedicated officers we have, to ensure that all our landlords are held to account. So rather than attempting to place the blame on hard-pressed local authorities such as Hounslow, we all know where the true blame lays for the problem with housing in this country. It lies in central government, it lies with the Tory party, and what we desperately need is a Labour government to reverse what they've not done. It's usually what they've done, but what they've not done for the last 12 years. As a council, we will continue to prioritise enforcement of housing standards provided by all landlords and ensure that we maintain our strong and up-to-date plan to ensure adequate enforcement and capacity to drive up standards across all social and private landlords. I would urge you to support this amendment and let's stop this side of the House turning it into a party political sting at the council and put the blame where it absolutely lies. And I urge you to support this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Stroutup. Can I ask Councillor Sampson to second the amendment?
The council has always strived to maintain very high standards for its residents, irrespective of the type of housing, and is determined that all property, including council, housing association and private landlords, meet the high standards. But to do this, the council must be fully funded to ensure a robust, effective inspection enforcement regime is maintained. This is not helped by a forever late and reduced settlement, which we have just heard in the previous motion, does not enable the council to implement a long-term sustainable management plan. I therefore ask, on behalf of all councils up and down the country, that our Conservative colleagues here on the other side of the chamber to demand a decent and humane settlement from their government to give us councils security to budget for years to come.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Councillor Borough, do you accept the amendment?
No.
Shall we vote on that
Vote on what?
amendment?
Well, point of order, I was going to say, I asked the question we put on the amendment.
Debate. You want to put the question on amendment?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, I formally move that the question be put.
Second. Okay, let's moving the amendments for. Against. Abstain. No. So amendments moved on.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Can the question now be put on the motion as amended, please? I've just asked that the question now be put on the motion now amended, please, Mr. Mayor.
So can you give that clarity then, please?
So we just need to now just vote on the actual amendments. We've done the procedural bits, but now substantive. So can we do that, please?
Yes.
This is on the amended.
Amended motion. Can we get the vote on that?
No, on the just on the amendment.
Or just on amendment?
So the request has been and carried that the amendment should be put to the vote.
Yeah, just the amendment.
So you
So
need
now
to
we need to
talk
come-
now about the vote is now on the amendment. And that's without debate because it's being requested that the motion be put. Okay, so can we vote on that, please?
Yeah.
For the amendment? Against the amendment? It's carried, amended carried.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, point of order again. Now that motion's been duly amended, may the question now be put on the motion as amended, please?
Yes. Yes, let's vote on the amendment. No substantial. A motion,
The
amended
original
motion.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, we now vote on will the question be put.
Playing with residents' lives.
I know it's confusing.
First vote.
Yes.
Yeah. On the.
I'll help you.
Yes. And against?
Any abstention?
Any abstention?
Okay. Now we move to the substantive motion.
Now we move to a substantive. So substantive motion is amended now. For against, abstain.
The motion as amended is carried.
Motion as amended is carried. Agenda item 12. We now, may I ask Councillor Don Boring will now formally propose this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to propose this motion. I understand the opposition have tabled an amendment which I don't accept. I'd like to begin by telling you about a family of asylum seekers I had the privilege of meeting last year, who I am now proud to call my friends. I'll refer to them as Family A. Family A had a life in bustling Moscow when they had to flee Putin's oppression. They left behind good employment, family and friends, their home, treasured belongings, and their beloved 2 dogs. They arrived in this country legally with only a small bag each. Despite coming to this country in 2021, their straightforward claim for asylum is still unresolved. Despite being competent professionals, they've been unable to work legally and are a burden on the taxpayer. They have offers of industry-specific work. They have skills and experience. They are industrious people used to paying their own way. They want to contribute to the economy, pay their taxes, be functioning members of society. Yet, they are compelled to a meager existence of handouts paid for by the hardworking people of this country. We have potential doctors, nurses, teachers, architects, care workers, lawyers, scientists, construction workers, a host of professions too long to list, desperate to work in a country desperate for their skills, but instead of utilizing them, it seems this government would rather deport them to Rwanda at further eye-watering cost. I know many of my residents are appalled at this profligate waste of money when vital services are stripped to the bone. The Archbishop of Canterbury recently said that refugees are people, not problems. And he's right. But I'd go further. They're opportunities, not opponents. They want to be contributors, not constraints. But instead of giving them the chance to flourish, instead of allowing them to play their part in our economy and society, they're left to languish in hotel rooms at a huge cost in a purposefully painful purgatory. We know 94% of asylum seekers want to work. And if they were allowed to, it would contribute £211 million a year to the economy. This motion speaks to an intersection of morality, poor stewardship of public finances, and wasted potential. It's easy to find examples of cruelty and austerity done to save money, but this government manages to waste both money and human potential whilst punishing the vulnerable and the needy. Only the Conservatives could dream up such a marriage of incompetence and inhumanity. If it weren't so tragic, it would be laughable. But the taxpayers in my ward and beyond are not laughing. Family A are not laughing, and neither am I. I move this motion and warmly urge all colleagues to vote in favour. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Borough. Can I ask Councillor Asim to second the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It gives me great pleasure to second this motion today. Like for many of us in the room and many others within our borough, this motion resonates with me both personally and politically. This council is proud to welcome the diverse nationalities that live, work and study in our borough. For years, the Conservative Party pledged to cut overall net immigration to below 100,000 per year, a target they've never met. As a result, their haphazard attempt to orchestrate a plan of action on immigration has backfired, placing thousands of migrants in hostile, unsuitable environments where their rights are undermined. One migrant group is pitted against another in a never-ending culture of blame fueled by the government's lack of strategic action. But that is them and this is us. I am proud, Mr. Mayor, that as a borough we are one of the most culturally diverse parts of the country. And as a local authority, this council under Labour leadership has stepped up to the mark and has in many instances gone over and above in its efforts to support migrants in their resettlement journey into our borough. We also work very closely with our voluntary sector and charitable groups to support migrant communities with essentials like food, clothing, and shelter. We also acknowledge that circumstances do cause people to move, and as a local authority, we adapt our services to cater for the needs of all those who require them. But we cannot sustain our services while suffering blow after blow through economic cuts from central government. Without adequate funding and resources from central government, and without legislation protecting the rights of migrants, our efforts are restricted. Hounslow is currently accommodating 160 unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, and in September had 110 unaccompanied asylum-seeking children in care, which was the highest of all London boroughs. Comparatively, other London boroughs at the same time period had 5 unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, so our figures are well exceeding that target. Furthermore, Hounslow is currently providing education to 450 statutory school-age children, many of whom have been given accommodation at one of our 8 contingency hotels. The council stepped up again by reimbursing our local schools that accommodated these new pupils, given that the government failed to provide adequate funding while basing their allocations on the 2022 census. The funding claimed by schools went towards uniform, free school meals, travelling costs and teacher assistance, and totaled to approximately £90,000. This is why, Mr. Mayor, we call on central government to give local authorities the support and funding required to allow migrant communities the right to live in dignity, giving them the chances and opportunities they deserve to fulfill their full potential. Furthermore, we call on the government to end their hostility towards migrants so that they can live without the fear of their rights being confiscated. Mr. Mayor, I urge Council to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Asim.
Mr. Mayor, on a point of order, really sorry. I'm sorry, just on a point of order, Schedule 4A of the Council's constitution, which I'm very boring and have read, 10.1 says, except for motions which can be moved without notice, written notice of every motion identifying 2 members, one as proposer and one as seconder, must be delivered to the proper officer not later than 7 working days before the date of the meeting. Councillor Parazotto was on the order paper that was delivered 7 days before the meeting. Is it in order for Councillor Bowring to propose that?
Well, the substance of the motion is exactly the same. It's just a different member just speaking to it. That's all. But there was, wasn't there?
So let me help with the monitoring officer is absolutely correct. It says a proposer and a seconder, and we have had a proposer and a seconder. It just identifying 2 members, which we've also had this evening as well. So it may well have been Councillor Parazotto, but actually Councillor Bowring has actually moved the motion and it's been seconded appropriately. So absolutely, it's valid in our opinion.
Now, there is a proposed amendment by Councillor Jack Emsley. Can you please introduce the amendment?
That is me. And I was going to say, pay tribute to Councillor Powers also and Councillor Asim for tabling the motion and allowing us to have a debate on an incredibly important topic. But thank you to Councillor Bowring for proposing in Councillor Parazotto's place. I'd also just like to put on record, Mr. Mayor, how horrified I was to see some of the social media abuse that Councillor Parazotto was subjected to for her work on promoting the rights of refugees. She tweeted about one particularly horrific message she received over the weekend, but I'm aware it's not an isolated incident. Nobody should be subject to that sort of abuse, least of all elected officials campaigning on the issues that matter to their community. That's true all the time, but it's especially important that we call it out, given the motion that you rightly referred to at the beginning of this meeting. Mr. Mayor, this is so close to being a great motion. It rightly recognises the work voluntary groups do in our area to support those fleeing war or persecution and calls on the council to work alongside them. It rightly recognises the amazing contribution made to our borough by migrant communities that Councillor Bowring referred to earlier. And it may surprise some Labour colleagues to know that I also think this motion is right to recognise that the Home Office's current process for processing asylum seekers is inefficient and is causing both unacceptable delays and intolerable levels of stress for those seeking our help. I'm sure colleagues won't mind me saying that that's a view shared by many in our party and all of us on this side of the chamber. But Mr. Mayor, whilst this motion does well to recognise those things, where it currently falls short is concrete local action. Because the only real action this motion currently asks the council to take is for Councillor Rajawat to write a strongly worded letter to the Home Secretary. And I'm sure Councillor Rajawat is a fantastic letter writer. And Mr. Mayor, I wouldn't want to be on the wrong end of a strongly worded letter from Councillor Rajawat or an email or anything like that. And so I mean this with no disrespect, but I think we can do slightly better than a strongly worded letter. And I believe there is the political will to do that and go further tonight. So my amendment removes that politics of letter writing and replaces it with the politics of action by asking this council to do what dozens of other local authorities up and down the country have already done and become a UK borough of sanctuary. Mr. Mayor, I'm aware of time getting on, so I want to just quickly explain what that means, and I think Councillor Thompson will speak to that as well. But the City of Sanctuary movement encourages communities to take pride in offering a place of safety for people whose lives are threatened and celebrating their contribution to towns and cities. Just before I finish, Mr. Mayor, I mentioned that Conservative and Labour groups in many other local authorities have already joined forces to pass non-partisan motions to become cities or boroughs of sanctuary. A motion was passed unanimously in Hastings. A motion was passed unanimously in Southampton, in Peterborough, in Birmingham, and down the road in Wandsworth. I hope that both of our groups can come together, vote for this amendment, replace the politics of letter writing with the politics of action, and join other councils in unanimously backing Hounslow, taking the first steps to becoming the latest borough of sanctuary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Emsley. Can I have seconded Councillor Thompson, please?
Yeah, again, just very quickly, I'll jump in before we get debate curtailed and so on. This is a massively, isn't it, complex issue, and no one side has the monopoly on truth or virtue on this one. I can remember a couple of years ago being on holiday in a campsite down near Dungeness and sitting there with my family watching boat after boat come ashore, and those young men jumping ashore, running around for a bit, and all coming back together. Police came, taken away. That can't be right, can it? Something has to be done with the system. And yeah, Rwanda is a very flawed policy. But it is a policy that needs a bit of thought and consideration. I did read and remember at the time the Archbishop's comments. I'm fully supportive of any church member or person of faith getting involved in the particular process, but I actually think he was wrong on that one, because ultimately there is a debate to be had. Do we just let anybody who comes into the country, regardless of the way, and think of those unsafe and horrible ways in which people do travel, stay here? I don't know. I think we need to be open and have that conversation nationally. But more important than that, as Councillor Emsley said, what we actually are proposing would actually do something concrete and useful. It wouldn't just be a letter that's going with all the other letters that Councillor Chantanou is sending tonight to the tax people and the Chancellor and whoever else. You'd be a busy man, Councillor Chantanou. So the city or borough sanctuary movement, again, if you don't know it, it's well worth having a look. You know, we did table this motion a couple of days ago. If you hadn't had time, please go to their website. As Councillor said, my colleague, many councils of all persuasions unanimously have supported the scheme. And if we were to, maybe we need to go away and think about it and bring it back at a subsequent meeting. But if we were to sign up for this, what we are saying is that we will, and I know this happens already, but we're raising the profile, and across parties we are committing to working in very close partnership with all the charities, the voluntary organisations and civic society groups to improve the way Hounslow welcomes refugees. We do a tremendous job. We have historically done a tremendous job, but there's always more that we can do. We've had that long history, as I said, of welcoming people when awful things have happened around the world. And we heard earlier tonight, we're at the moment welcoming people coming to this country from the Ukraine. But we want to always surely build on what we do, build on the good work we do, get together, produce that inevitable action plan, think about resources, and if we do have to find money elsewhere and so on, and make sure that we can, as I said, offer a welcome, a sanctuary, and put to one side, I suppose, the wider issues of migration, Rwanda, and the small boats, and the EU, and all the rest of it, and deal with something we can actually make a difference to. And that, honestly, is the intention behind this motion. We had a previous sort of motion of ours filleted, so it says nothing and does nothing. This motion, actually, this amendment to your motion that we have before you, will mean that this council and its officers are tasked with making a better impact on the quality of life on those people who, for no fault of their own, find themselves our neighbours and our friends living on our streets and in our communities. So please do, even if you're going to vote against it, because it's already been decided in Labour group, please do have a ponder, have a reflection, look at this scheme and see whether somewhere down the line it's one that we can and we should sign up to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Thompson.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, point of order. Councillor Emsley was doing really well supporting that motion until he tried to get it thrown out by a cheap constitutional trick. Therefore, I move that the question now be put on the amendment.
That's not what you were doing.
So the question to be put. Against? Abstain? Question to be put. Motion?
Points of order. One is raising a point of order, a cheap trick. That's for your opinion. And secondly, we'd like to move that a recorded vote takes place on this item, so the residents in Hounslow do know which people in this room voted against making Hounslow a borough of sanctuary.
Because that's for a record. That's what they just said.
Yeah. Yeah, we will do, yeah.
No, if someone requests a recorded vote, it has to be one of the.
We'll see.
So we will be voting on amendment.
That's a name vote.
So because Conservative wants named vote.
But yes, correct. So for the name vote, Mr. Mayor, we
Yeah.
need proposers and seconder also, I believe, or any member can do that. Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, what's happening is the procedural motion has been carried in relation to the vote should be put to the amendment. There's been a legitimate and supported request that this should be a recorded vote for the amendment itself. Okay. So that means I'm going to now ask each member in turn to say whether they support or against or abstain to the amendment.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. I fully appreciate what the Chief Executive said, but the request for a recorded vote hasn't reached the threshold to allow for a recorded vote.
8 members need to be voting on that, first of all. Absolutely correct. So we need a vote on that, first of all. So let's go into that vote, if you can, Mr. Mayor, about who supports and is against that. There's a minimum of 8 members required.
So for against, abstain, none.
Therefore, there will be a recorded vote because there's sufficient numbers to support it. So, members, if you wouldn't mind, by Mr. Mayor, please, if you could ask me to do this now.
Can I ask Chief Executive to read the names out?
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm going to ask each member in turn, and if each member could say whether they're for or against or wish to abstain in the context of a recorded vote for the amendment to the substantive motion. And procedurally, I'll say what we're going to do after this is subject to that. We will then go on to debate or otherwise the substantive motion, which was originally Councillor Bowring's moved and Councillor Aksa Ahmed, Madeir, sorry, seconded. So if you can follow that logic, I'll start. So, and hence my call Aksa Ahmed. Councillor Aksa Ahmed, are you for, against, or abstaining? Councillor Mohammed Shakil Akram. Councillor Madeir Hassim.
Against.
Councillor Lilybath. Councillor Rashid Bhatti.
Against.
Councillor Joanna Bidoff.
For.
Councillor Dan Bowring.
Against.
Councillor Tom Bruce. Councillor Ghazala Butt.
Against.
Councillor Samia Chowdhury. Councillor Unsa Chowdhury.
Against.
Councillor Banana Chopra.
Against.
Councillor Amy Croft.
For.
Councillor Catherine Dunn.
Against.
Councillor Jack Emsley.
For.
Councillor Adesh Farmahan. Councillor Richard Foote. Councillor Gabriella Giles.
For.
Councillor Ranjit Gill.
For.
Councillor Shivraj Gerwal. Councillor Vikram Gerwal. Councillor Riaz Gul.
Against.
Councillor Vishnu Gurung. Councillor Alan Joseph.
For.
Councillor Noreen Kaleem.
Against.
Councillor Farah Karan. Councillor Asal Kiani.
Against.
Councillor Gurmal Lal. Councillor Guy Lambert.
Against.
Councillor Karmat Malik.
Against.
Councillor Gerald McGregor.
Or.
Councillor Jinumai.
Against.
Councillor Hinamir.
Against.
Councillor Anil Mitchell. Councillor Ron Mishiso. 4. Councillor Samina Nagra.
Against.
Councillor Lara Parizotto.
Against.
Councillor Shantanu Rajawat. Councillor Saya Raza. Councillor Farhan Rehman.
Against.
Councillor Danish Said. Councillor Sue Sampson. Councillor Barbara Sarai. Councillor Salman Shaheen. Councillor Marina Sharma.
Against.
Councillor Jagdish Sharma. I think I got 2 for 1 then. Councillor Ragwinder Sidhu. Thank you very much, Councillor Sharma. I've got that. Councillor Aftab Siddiqui.
Against.
Councillor Karen Smith. Councillor John Stroud-Turp. Councillor Kuldeep Tak.
4.
Councillor Peter Thompson. Councillor John Todd.
4.
Councillor Mohammed Umar.
Against.
And Councillor Rhys Williams.
Against.
Okay. As Mr. Mayor, the amendment is not carried.
Amendment is not carried, it's not accepted. Now, substantive item, let's debate the actual motion. Councillor Salman Shaheen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to my colleagues on the Labour bench for bringing this motion. Thanks for the engagement that the opposition benches have put to it. And I think, I don't know whether I speak for any of my colleagues here, the reason why their amendment was not to our liking was not because of any questions around City of Sanctuary. Sure, Councillor Thompson, let's have that discussion another time. Unfortunately, what your amendment did was gut any criticism of the government in this motion, and that is very important that we have that on the record. But I do welcome the engagement of my Conservative colleagues across the bench, because I think it's a reflection of the diversity of thought in this borough, a borough that is also diverse in every element of its nature. Now, most of us here in this room will have crossed a border to be here today, or your parents or your grandparents did so. My own father crossed 2 borders so that I could be standing here with you today. The first was north during partition, or just a year after partition happened, when he fled Mysore, at the age of 4 years old, fled Mysore on the day that Gandhi was assassinated and India erupted into violence. And I remember he would tell me the story of how he was hidden under the seat of a train, hiding in the hot dark as men with guns boarded that train and looked for people who prayed a different way. Now, that's an immigrant story from India to Pakistan. Horrors happened on both sides. Horrors happened to people who are fleeing Pakistan and to India. And I think it's a testament to our borough and to our city that all of us here today have come together as friends and colleagues, despite all of the history that goes there. And the second border my father crossed was to this country, where he was far more fortunate in that he came here to study and then to work as a teacher. He met my mother, he settled down in a country that was far more welcoming, far more open to the world then than it is today, where we're now in a place where we're turning in on each other, turning in on ourselves, turning away from the world stage and turning our backs on our responsibilities to migrants, to asylum seekers, to human decency. And I think that's very important, that that message comes across to the government, that this is a borough that welcomes migrants, this is a borough that supports migrants. And I think all those of us who are here in this room, whether we were born here, whether our parents came here, whether our grandparents came here, whether we came here, that all of us who have the privilege to sit here should look at our privilege and look to those who are less fortunate than ourselves, who have not had the same privileges as we, and extend our sympathies to all of those people who are fleeing whatever circumstances they are to be here. I'm glad that we're a borough that looks to the world with and to those less fortunate with sympathy. This motion is a testament to that, and I would love that conversation to continue on how we can work together to ensure that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen. Councillor Browning, you want to conclude?
I think Councillor Croft might be.
Councillor Croft.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We want to say clearly that migrants are welcome here. Our borough is hugely diverse, with over 50% of the population not born in the UK, as Councillor Bowring alluded to before. They include doctors, nurses, teachers, and people from all professions. But instead of celebrating this diversity, this government would rather deport people to other countries, take away migrants' rights to work, deprive them of access to public services, and vilify them at every possible opportunity to cover their own mistakes. The government could choose compassion and sense in policy making, but instead it chooses to criminalise people and force them into dangerous, illegal journeys. Now, I say illegal journeys, they're not illegal journeys. The right to seek asylum is an international right that we all share in certain circumstances. And there are far too few safe asylum routes, and the Home Secretary knows that. Last year, Suella Braverman was questioned by the Home Affairs Select Committee and couldn't help but to admit exactly this. And when they finally arrived in the UK, they sadly joined the hostile environment that thousands of migrants are already in, ranging from immigration raids in the workplace to the Home Office making profits on immigration applications and still having the backlog that it has. Our immigration system is not broken, it is brutal by design. And that's why we step in as a council. Even with our limited powers and resources, we are currently home to over 3,000 asylum seekers that are placed by the Home Office in unsuitable hotel accommodation. Additionally, due to a broken national transfer scheme, we are looking after over 100 unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, many of whom were identified as over 18 by the Home Office until we brought them into our care, placing them in unspeakable danger, as shown by the recent devastating news that hundreds of asylum-seeking children went missing from a hotel. Because of these policy failures, the third sector is having to fill the gap, and we are enabling organisations to support people and activities with decent food, clothing, classes and more. And all we want to do is to continue supporting our residents. Undeniably, however, over a decade of Conservative austerity has left us struggling. And rather than the Home Office helping local authorities like ours to support our new residents, it chose to spend millions of pounds on inhumane schemes like the Rwanda plan. And that's why we are taking extra steps to go above and beyond supporting migrant communities in Hounslow. We will be collaborating with the City of Sanctuary and JCWI to empower migrants and celebrate our residents. We extend our direct support as much as possible, ensuring everyone knows about their rights, ranging from voter eligibility to housing support. We ensure our staff understand people's rights and use culturally competent strategies to include migrants. We work harder than third sector organisations, amplifying their voices to benefit those most vulnerable. And we will continue advocating for the changes our immigration system desperately needs, where asylum seekers have the right to work and contribute their skills in the place they now call home, where migrants are not criminalised and threatened with deportation flights, and where local authorities are appropriately funded to serve our communities. Compassion over cruelty, humanity over hatred, people over prejudice, and that's where we stand.
Thank you, Councillor Croft.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, if I might. Given the Conservatives' enthusiasm, I'd like to propose a recorded vote on this motion, please.
Thank you. Show of hand who support the against, abstentions. So record of vote carried. So I will ask Chief Exec to take it up from here.
I don't know if Councillor Bowring wants to sum up before we move to a vote.
Yes, sum up, Councillor Bowring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to very briefly, point out, members here will know I'm relatively familiar with sleight of hand. I'd just like to point out the sleight of hand that Councillor Shaheen pointed to. I'd like to read out the following line that Councillor Elmsley recommended be deleted from this motion. The current government has created a hostile environment which is cruel, divisive, and inefficient. It has caused harm to various groups across the country and in our borough. The Rwanda deportation plan is deeply immoral and inefficient. We will not be removing that line. I'd also like to agree with Councillor Shaheen's comments that the conversation does not end here. I warmly urge all colleagues to vote for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Boring. Now I ask Councillor Chief Exec to take it from here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. If each member, when I call in turn, could say whether they're for, against, or wish to abstain from the substantive motions, to the unamended motion that was originally put to council. Councillor Aksa Hamid. Councillor Mohammed Shakil Akram. Councillor Medea Hassim.
For.
Councillor Lilybath. Councillor Rashid Bhatti.
For.
Councillor Joanna Bidoff.
Against.
Councillor Dan Bowring.
For.
Councillor Tom Bruce. Councillor Ghazala Bhatt.
For.
Councillor Samia Chowdhury.
For.
Councillor Unsa Chowdhury.
For.
Councillor Bandana Chopra.
For.
Councillor, pardon me, Councillor Amy Croft.
For.
Councillor Catherine Dunn.
For.
Councillor Jack Emsley.
Against.
Councillor Adesha Farmahan. Councillor Richard Foote. Councillor Gabriella Giles.
Against.
Councillor Ranjit Gill.
Against.
Councillor Shivrav Garwal. Councillor Vikram Garwal.
For.
Councillor Riaz Gal.
For.
Councillor Vishnu Gurung. Councillor Alan Joseph.
Against.
Councillor Noreen Kalim. Councillor Farah Kamran, pardon me. Councillor Afzal Kiani.
For.
Councillor Gamal Lal. Councillor Guy Lambert.
For.
Councillor Karim Malik.
For.
Councillor Gerald McGregor.
Against.
Councillor Juna Mir.
For.
Councillor Ina Mir. Councillor Alan Mitchell. Councillor Ron Mishiso.
Against.
Councillor Samina Nagra.
For.
Councillor Lara Parazotto.
For.
Councillor Shantanu Rajawat. Councillor Sayed Raza.
For.
Councillor Farhan Rahman.
For.
Councillor Denise Said. Councillor Sue pardon me, Councillor Sampson. Councillor Sue Sampson. Councillor Balra Sarai. Councillor Salman Shaheen. Councillor Marina Sharma.
For.
Councillor Jagdish Sharma. Councillor Ragwinder Sidhu.
For.
Councillor Aftab Siddiqui.
For.
Councillor Karen Smith. Councillor John Stroud Turp. Councillor Kuldeep Tak. Councillor Peter Thompson. Councillor John Todd.
Against.
Councillor Mohammed Emir. Councillor Rhys Williams.
For.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. That motion is carried.
Thank you, Niall. The motion carried on. Agenda item 13, any matters urgent? Nothing?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Garwal here. I think Councillor Sukbi Daiwal was missed off the roster. Sukbi Daiwal, 2 seats away from me.
Can we just check in with Councillor Sukbi Daiwal what his vote is?
Councillor Dhariwal. Thank you, Councillor Dhariwal.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Pardon me for that.
Agenda item 14, next meeting is very important. That's for budget meeting, so which will be on 28th of February. And I ask all the members to sign the attendance book if you haven't signed. And see you on 28th. Thank you very much.